All right, let's get started. Thursday, low attendance. I'm beginning to think Brandon has instituted this new, required attendance policy and late policy. I'm beginning to see some benefit to that, but uh, we'll progress as we are for now. So two things today. We're going to finish up Unit 5 and talk about um, how to do Firebase in Java and Kotlin. We'll look at both the database, Firestore, and we'll spend some time looking at authentication there. Um, and then we will look at project one, uh, which caught me off guard because usually we don't hit project one till week 8. But again, I've condensed this course. So we're spending 6 weeks on this Java and Kotlin version. And then we're spending 5 weeks on Flutter with Dart. And then we're spending 4 weeks on Firebase Studio, which is more of a vibe coding option. So it's 6 weeks, 5 weeks, and 4 weeks as we go for this. So yeah, it's already week 6 is next week. We've got to get the project going, and we're doing a couple sprints. So for that reason, the assignment this week is optional here. It is just looking at code and answering some questions, and we'll go through a fair amount of this today, hopefully. But again, writing it up and that sort of stuff is not required because you do have something required for the project. So my plan today is to spend 45 minutes to an hour on Unit 5 stuff on Firebase, and then the rest of the class letting you get a good start on the project and brainstorm the project, and maybe even get the UI and stuff started with that. So that's our goal for this. So let's jump into the learning activity here. So last class we started talking about Firebase and working in Java on this Firebase data model. Firebase has a real-time database, an old version, and then their new version called Firestore, and we're trying to update things and use Firestore this year for this. We started with an app, and again, you may have started with these apps in either Java or Kotlin, and they provide basically this framework. They have the main activity. They have all the UI. There's so like this is the Java or the views version with fragments. The Kotlin version is very similar, just that these things are composables. These screens are composables, and so then we don't have these layout files. So if you look at the Kotlin version, well, here's where's the so here's like the Java version. We have the UI. We have the main activity, but then we have what are called fragments and this adapter, which just shows a single kind of park or maps parks here. So we have these things, and then but we also have under resources, right? We have all these layouts. There's a layout for every screen here, an add park, a park list, a park detail, login screen, sign up screen, all those screens are available here. But if I look at the Kotlin version, here's the Kotlin version. Each of these screens is its own little composable, so this is just a composable here that shows that sets this up. So the park detail screen is just a composable. And so then there is no layout screens and resources because this is using Kotlin with these compose functions. So again, but either one, they have this layout. They also have two view models, one for the parks and one for the users. So again, we're displaying a bunch of like state parks and city parks, whatever you might hike around in. So we have a view model for parks, and we have a park item here. We also have a view model. We want to keep track of users and logged in users. So we have a view model for users and a user object. So in both of these, if you look under the model, there'll be a park. So we have for each park, the name of the park, the address, latitude and longitude here. And users, we have, the email, display name, their favorite type of park, something like that. And again, same in Kotlin, under data models, the parks there and the users there also. So again, that's given to you. And then we start with a blank Firebase service here, and we add things to this. And we worked on this last time, doing it in Java here and connecting up to Firebase. And if you remember, what we have to do is go to Firebase Console. We have to create a new project here. I did, like in class, I did this in class 1. So there's this in class project. We had to enable Firestore database. I'm not sure if we enabled Firebase authentication, but we have to do that to do authentication here. So again, what we look at often, if there are lots of tools, and those are listed down here. If I look under build, there's like authentication here. And again, if I don't have it, when I click on it here, it will bring up a screen and say add it to your project there. So I've added both Firestore and Firebase authentication to our project. With Firebase, you remember we looked at collections. Here we're creating a collection called parks. It's kind of like a table. And then here are our different parks that are in our database in these different documents. And these are the fields here, and we store them as a key value pair, kind of like. So we have the latitude key and then the actual number for that. So we set that up. Now, one thing I've noticed is, okay, when we set this up, we have to download a JSON file in our project. So in our project here, I'm going to switch to project mode so I can see actual files. But inside app, there should be a build.json file. I mean, a Firestore JSON file. This has some private information in it, so it's generally not pushed up to GitHub and stored in GitHub. So for them, I created this. This is a version that I created or updated at my home or in my office computer or whatever, another computer, and then I just brought it in here today there. And so it doesn't have that file. So in order to run this, I need to go in here and I need to go to project overview, project settings here. And my app is here, but I want to download this Google Services JSON file again. So again, every computer you're working on, you'll want to download this file to connect to it. So I'm just going to download this file. And put it in the app folder. So again, and we actually did that in here. If you start a file from scratch, remember we went to Tools, Firebase, and we connected this to Firebase. So we did like Cloud Firestore here, and we got started with it and checked if it was made a connection. And that is what we started the project, and it downloaded that file for us here. So again, that kind of does the same sort of stuff here. Questions on how Firestore kind of works with this? So I decided, because we don't have all day to do this, and we want to do this in Kotlin and Java, just to show you the actual code rather than writing out code for this. So it's a little different Thursday so that we can have time to work on the project one here. So I'm going to show you, we're going to walk through the Java code and this Kotlin code for Firestore. We did the Java code, but we didn't get it all done. So this is this version here should have the full version of the Java code working. So I'm just going to walk through that here. So I'm in my Java project. I got to switch this back to Android view. So again, how this is working, let's just look at the diagram. I made a diagram to help, hopefully this is there's one file that handles all the Firebase stuff, and it's called Firebase Service, and that connects up with Firebase. And then the view models work with that. Both the view models will work with this stuff. The authentication stuff uses the user view model, and the park view uses the park stuff. So let's look at the park one. That's what we were working on last class. So again, I'm going to go into this Firebase service, and then the top files do things. So I'm going to look, okay, so first we start with a database, DB, and we just go out to Firestore, and we get an instance of the database here. And then we have a method called add a park. We're going to add a park to the database. A method called add park. We pass in a park. So again, this is one of our park objects here. We've defined that class here. So we're passing in a park. And all we're using is our database dot collections and giving it some name, the table name or the collection name, parks, and then we're saying add park. So we're adding this park to this list. And again, that'll add, let's go to our Firestore. There's a collection called parks. Go into this collection and create a new park listing with the park information. So that'll do that. Or you can add some other stuff to report success and failure and that sort of stuff, but at the heart, this is all you really have to do is to add a park to the database. And now we're going to fetch the parks. We want to get those parks back. We want to get a list of parks here. So again, we are calling our database collection parks. Now you can imagine this string has to be exactly the same as this string here. I probably shouldn't hard code those strings. They should probably be a constant up in my file here so that I don't misspell them or anything like that, right? So, but collection parks, and I'm going .get, and that will get all the data for this. It's asynchronous, so I have to provide a listener here. So I provide a listener here for this. When it's assuming this task is successful, I'm going to create a new list of parks. I'm going to loop through my document, my results from this task. In the document, I'm going to get I'm going to convert each document into a park. So again, there's these, clicking on the wrong thing. This is a document, and it has these fields. Again, this is really stored in JSON out there. So you can just see. So it's basically a JSON text file that I'm getting as a document, and I'm converting that, serializing that into a park. And that's what this does here. Sometimes I gotta work with the ID. I'm not quite sure what this, I think this is left over. I don't actually think I have to do that. I should get the whole ID. One of the issues we sometimes have is that Firebase will add its own ID uniquely whenever you add a field here for this. So maybe I'll switch over there without clicking on it. So like here, this number for each one, this is the document ID there, but we also have an ID here for this. A lot of times we just want to use this one Firebase ID and not some internal ID, or we might want both. So that's what this is kind of doing, is doing that. And then we're adding the park to our park list. And then once we get this back, we're calling a callback. We'll see this in a set, passing in the park list back to this callback for this. Okay, so that what interfaces with this? So again, that's Firebase. The park view model is the only thing that should be interfacing with that stuff. So if we look at our park view model, let's see. Again, we'll have a load park method. It will call. So again, we create a Firebase service up here. So where's our here is our Firebase service. We created that. So once we have our Firebase service, we call load park. It can call fetch park there for that. And it will fetch the park list. Now this is a little what we call like a Lambda function, where we will provide a little routine for it to run when it's done. So this is the callback that we're passing to it. And there's ways to pass more complicated callbacks, but here the callback's so simple that we're just putting it as a Lambda function. We're basically defining, rather than creating an external function with a name and putting that name here, we're just listing the code right here. So we're just saying, all you want to do is, we have a park list here, and we want to, from our parks, we want to set the value with this park list. So you're getting back a park list, and we want to, when that's returned, we're going to set the value on this park here. So we have this park here. Now we may have mentioned something about live data, right? So this has to be reflected back into our UI, and different UI components here will be listening to when we get new parks. And so that is what this live data is, our list of parks, or no, here, our immutable live data is our list of parks here. So that just means is when we say parks, we can't just say parks equal something. We have to say park.setValue.park list. And then set value is one of these live data things. So that is smart enough to say, oh, who's listening to this live data, notify them, or update it, and then also notify everyone that's listening that this has been updated for this. Now I added this in here. If the park list is empty the first time we call this, it just puts 3 parks in the list. So there's some list in our app. So, and again, add parks. Here we're giving it a park. We just call our Firebase service and we call add parks here. And then we're going to add it to our local list right away. So we have our list of current parks. We're adding it to add the park to our current park list there. So again, we're making a new list and adding it and setting our park list to this new list. This isn't absolutely necessary. You could just delete all this and it would work. It just makes for a little more responsive UI in that as soon as you hit add parks, and you go back to main screen, your park should be there right away. Otherwise, there'll be like a second delay as it goes out to Firebase, and then Firebase updates it, and then we get notified of that change and that sort of stuff. And so you could just delete this. It's common practice to do this for this stuff. And again, one of the things we're doing here is we are maintaining our own list of parks here from Firebase. You could not really have your own list of parks, but every time, just always use the Firebase data here. And again, it's really just a matter of how responsive or quick or stuff you want And if there are sometimes where you don't want to actually go out to Firebase to get the list for displaying things. So I think last class we weren't getting this Firebase service here to fetch the parks working correctly. So this, I don't think this code was working correctly. So this is the correct version, or a correct version of this code for this. Won't we look at that in Kotlin just to see? So I'm going to switch over to this version, which is the Kotlin version. I've opened that up over here. Again, we're adding a database for Firestore here, and we're just creating it. This is what's called a lazy creation. Java doesn't have this, as I remember. What this does is it won't instantiate this class until we actually use it, in case we don't use it or don't use it right away there. Add park, you're given a park. Here we're going a little more some more error checking. So we're doing a try. We're doing database.collection. And again, now we have this park collection. So again, we put that the name of the table or the collections up there as a constant, so that we can just use that here. So we're doing a collection.add park. And then we're waiting here and we're logging the results. If you remember, when we looked at it here, I said you could add this on success, on fail listener and do some logs here. That's basically what we're doing here, is we're logging these. So you could get rid of these. You could get rid of all of this stuff and this. And I think just put a semicolon there, maybe. Oh, I might, and just always return to true. It wants to return a value. So you could do that. I don't think Kotlin has semicolons, right? You could do that here just as well. And again, you really then could change it so you don't return a Boolean that it succeeded or not for this. Because this is what all we're really doing here is this database collection. This is the name of the collection, and then add in our park that we're passing in. But again, often you are wanting to do some error checking. So you're going to try, catch to see if there's an error, return true or false if it's successful. Here, something wrong with your Firestore database or whatever you are catching that. So, the other thing is with how do we get a list of parks back? So in Java, we use these live data. In Kotlin, there's something that's called flows that you usually use, and they're kind of similar. There are actually like 2 or 3 different kinds of flows you can use for different things. And again, it's not something we just have time to go into, but just know that just like you'd say live data something, here we have a flow something. So we have a flow that's a list of parks, and that will let other things observe or emit or know when this is. So again, we're calling our database collections the name of our parks. We're going to get the snapshot there. We're going to create a map of the snapshot here, and we're going to map every item to a document here for this. And this will create an array of parks for us that we can pass around. So it's kind of weird method for that. And then in our view model for the parks, again, we have a list of parks. Again, it's not a live data, it's what's called a state flow for this. And again, it's not a mutable live data, it's a mutable state flow. But again, you can imagine it works similar here. Here's how we add a park here. We have to create. So here we're not. This is one thing I wish I would have done different. I should have just passed in a park here. I'm passing in all the data on a park, and then we're creating a new park based on that. I should have just changed this to this. AI generated it this way, and I've been trying to clean up stuff, and I missed this one. So I should have just changed this so it was just a park there, and then we wouldn't need this. And again, we're just calling firebase.add park here. And again, this is all error checking. You can see AI generated. AI loves all this error checking here. So you could get rid of all this error checking here and just do this for this stuff and just create the new park and pass that into the Firebase service for this. Similar like when we are listening to parks here, we are going to we're going to be yeah, how does it work? So again, we're going to call our Firebase service and we're going to get the park flow here. So again, that's calling this get park flow for this. We're going to, if we return a collection here, we're going to update our park list. Park list.value is the new park list that's returned to that stuff. So this is the code that runs asynchronously once that park list is done, once this flow is done. And again, we're creating this object here. For this. I still haven't used Kotlin enough to really understand it. And I don't know how much you're using Kotlin and stuff. I know some people, if you dive into it, really like it and stuff. But it is a whole new language, and that sometimes is hard to get going here for this. Okay, any questions on the data store stuff before we jump into authentication? How are we doing on time? We still have good time. I think we can spend like 15 minutes or so on authentication. So let's talk about authentication. So this is the optional assignment here for this. So how do we add authentication to a project like this here? And again, you can start with some of these projects and do it. But again, I am just going to walk you through the code, I think, today. First thing you have to do is actually in your project, enable authentication here. So again, you have to go to build, and if authentication is not up here, add it as a tool for your project and enable it. And then you've got to set up your sign-in methods. There are a couple common sign-in methods here. And again, you've seen all these. You can use Google, Facebook, Microsoft, any of these, GitHub sign-ins. You can sign in with email and password or phone here. Excuse me, we're doing email and password because it's the simplest. Now, in order to do like Google or any of these provider ones, you need to add we need to make sure your app is authenticated here. So you need to add a SLA certificate to this for this. So when you look at your project here, I'm trying to remember where. I think my AI is talking to me.
App Store.
I think I mentioned the G word, and so my phone is an Android phone. I think it got excited. Or did I say, yeah, I don't know which of the words I mentioned. So somewhere in here, you have to enable an SLA certificate. I think this is here. Yeah. And set that up. You should have one, but then you have to like get it from your app and put it in here so that it's linked together. So just so you know, and again, when you create a new project, it often asks if you want to do that. So we are just going to enable do the email password one. So I've enabled that as the only thing here for now. It's email password. Okay, so we've got that set up. I can see my list of users here for this. I can also check there are some templates here for screens and or emails that are sent out and stuff like that if they use that sort of stuff there. And I think for setters, you can set your password policy for this and require certain things. I think by default, it requires a certain minimum password length here for this. So just so you know, if you're just testing this out, I think by default, there's a minimum password length at least for these. So again, you enable authentication here. Then we would go, oops, let's go to the Java one. I go to my Java one, go up here and go to Tools, Firebase, go to Authentication, which is way up at the top for this stuff. And we could authenticate, I'm going to say using Google here. So again, we would connect your app to Firebase. It's already connected because I connected it for the Firestore. So it's already connected there. You can add the Firebase authentication. So again, in your build.gradle file, there'll be there's a couple things, but in app level one, there are some libraries we need for this stuff. Here, Firebase. So Firebase Firestore we added and Firebase Auth, that's for authentication. So those are both implemented. And again, there's a file called libversions.toml, which will list which version of Firestore and FireAuth we're using for this. So again, it would add those to these files if you hit this one already. Complete your setup with Firebase Console. Again, make sure you're authenticating your client. So again, you go into Firebase Console, make sure you have that set up there. And then you'd sign it. Now, this is actually doing the email authentication with email and with Google there, and they're providing you sign-in code. I'm not sure why they don't do, so if I go here, they used to have a walkthrough samples for not just Google, Facebook, but your own account with email and password here with sample code for this. So again, this is the kind of sample code they put in. You'd do a sign in with whatever, and they'd provide, and then they'd have a on-complete listener and an on-complete here. And if it's successful, we have a user. If it's not, we don't have a user there. So you generally provide you sample code for this. Google also, Android also provides some sample templates here. I meant to link this in. So of course they have some documentation on how to set this up and videos. And again, here's their kind of sample code, how to sign up a new user. Here you import this, and here they create a user with an email and password. You pass in an email password and authentication client. Here sign in existing user, so they sign up a new user, sign in an existing user. So here's the code for that here. Now this is actually the web one, because again, you can use this with web also here. So I'm under the web. I want to switch this to Android and do this with Android with my app. Okay, so again, here, looks better. Yeah, we've the dependencies in Android, the resources. Here's your sign in here. Here they're actually doing lots of different providers, and they're using this sign in results here, and they're providing you code. This is all in Kotlin, but you can switch and look at this code in Java here also. So like they can just yeah, and they have examples of signing in with Google and signing in with different things. We actually just want password authentication for this is what the basics we are using here. They also have in GitHub, they have some quick start tools for Android. I'm just seeing the iOS and the web-based ones here. So again, they have sample codes for a lot of this stuff, including authentication here for this stuff. And they have examples on how to set this up and how to, sample code templates for this. Because again, the code can get it's very boilerplate-ish, I guess what I would say. So let's just look at what it looks like. So in Firebase service, we've got, so the first part is the data, the Firestore stuff, fetch parks and add park. Now, this is the authentication stuff. Here's the sign up with email, and here's so sign up with email, here's sign in with email. So let's look at sign in. You already have an account. We need an auth. So what is the auth? Again, just like we created a database called DB, we created an authentication client called auth and create that. So that's our authentication client. And then we are saying auth.sign in with email and password, and we provide an email and a password. Simple there. And sign up with email. So again, we're going to say auth create user with email, password, pass an email and a password here. There's a sign out method here and a get current user method for this. So get current user is going to be important, because what we'll do is we'll sign in and then we'll check if they're successful by checking the current user. If the current user returns a user ID, then it's work. If it returns null, it won't work. So actually nowadays they list up, but the new version of Firebase authentication, if you're just doing password stuff, is relatively simple. So that's all the code we need to do authentication here. And then, so let's look at our view model. So let's look at the view model. So we want let's back up. In our app, we're going to create a couple screens under UI. So there's a login and a sign up screen for it. And so a login screen would be if you already have an account. Sign up would be if you don't have an account. We are, again, when they create an account, we're going to create not just their username and password, but have some other information about them. Maybe their address or phone number. We're just collecting stuff like their favorite park. I think I was trying to think of stuff we should create. It's what's ever in the user stuff, the user data model. So the display name, that's what we wanted. And then their favorite park type are the two things we're creating there. So when we sign up, that screen will have those entered. So then we want to store, so we want to record them in Firebase authentication, but we also might want to store that user in the user location, inside Firestore as a user also. So we might want to do that for this. So this, like the sign up fragment, will call the auth model here. And so we have a sign in, we have a sign up method. Both of them are just providing a string and password. We are calling Firebase service and sign in with email, or Firebase service sign up with email and password. And then we're listening to the results here, and we're getting the results back for that user. And it's either a success or failure that we can log for that. So that's what these Firebase services are getting here. We also have a sign out where we can sign out from this model. We have a get user where we can get the user's name, or not name, user ID. Again, when we look at this, on our authentication, here's my user, here's my identifier, my email. And again, every user is given a unique user ID. And that's where we're often checking and tracking users by. And that is created by Firebase authentication when you create a new user. And it's returned when we sign in a user there, we will record that information and record that ID. So it's very similar, I would say, in Kotlin here in our Firebase service. Again, this was the database stuff. Here's the authentication stuff here. So sign up with email. We are calling the auth client. Again, we create an authentication object in Firebase. So we create, let's do sign in with email. We sign in with email there. We specify the email and password. We await the results. If the results come back, and we store the user ID or the users that's returned here as our results here. There, sign up with email, creates a new user, and signs that up for this. We have a get user command that just checks if the Firebase user is non-null, and if so, returns this. Calls the authentication model and gets the current user. So this checks if we've already gotten the current user, we just return it. If not, it's null. We go to authentication and get it for the first time and save it into here for this. So the idea here, let's see if I can run this and log in successfully. The other thing we have to check then is when the user goes to your app, we want to check if they're logged in. If they are already logged in, we want to go display the list of parks. If they're not logged in, we want to go to a separate screen that lets them log in for that. And that is usually handled like in the main activity or the navigation component. Let me look. I don't remember where in this example it was. So again, here's the main activity here. And again, we create our auth view model here. So we're creating our authentication view model here. We're getting the user for this. And if it's not null there, then we're navigating to the this fragment. Otherwise, we're navigating to this fragment. So again, this is if they're already logged in, we go here to this park list fragment. If they're not logged in, we go to this login or sign up fragment, depending on what they're choosing here, I think. So I'm just... Doesn't seem to actually run on my phone, so I'm trying to figure out why. Okay, so again, I haven't logged in here with my fragment, so I can try to log in here. Now, I should already have an account. I think I'm using the same account we had over there, so I think I can just log in. If I can remember what password I used. Now, one thing we aren't doing very good here to try to keep things simple is often you'd want to show, like, once you hit the login button, it's going to hang a little bit while it goes out and checks your authentication. You might want to disable this or show a little progress bar for login stuff. I had that originally in this code, but it was just too, I thought it was too complicated. Just mess things up. I wanted you to just see the basics here. So that, and again, I'm not getting a message that it failure message either. That's one of my standard. Okay, so it is possible. I'm not sure which of my Google projects this is actually connected to here, and which one has the right things. I'm going to try to create, well, that's not where, so otherwise I could go, I don't have an account, I can sign up. And again, this is the sign up page where I would create my name, my display name, favorite type of park, and I get my password. And I create an account. And that should have logged me in. Yeah, huh. It was working yesterday, of course. So I'm not sure why it's not logging in here for this. So that's how it works. Is that, and once you're logged in on your phone, you stay logged in until you log out, even if you quit the app and next day. You know, it works just like your normal app there. You don't have to log in every time you run the app, for example. Okay. So Oops. So let's talk about the project, the assignments. So learning activity, I want you to answer these questions down here. So that is required. The review is just a quick test. I actually remember to enable the review this week. So there is a review. You can just go through that. Just, the 5 quick questions about this sort of stuff. Authentication is optional. You will not hurt your grade if you skip this. But it's just questions. Again, you can look at the code and answer these questions about authentication here. Now let's go to the project. I'm going to go to the project description. I'm going to actually stop this recording.